How's it going, everybody? Something super cool is happening today. We're actually driving out in the RAV4 to look at an old 88 Nissan pickup. From the pictures, it looks pretty clean. It looks like it's well kept. It's a 4x4 manual transmission. It's the 4-cylinder engine that I hope that it would have. So we're gonna take a look and hopefully it's not rotted out. I haven't seen what the interior looks like yet, but mainly just worried about rust. So crossing our fingers on that the frame, body will look good. And the plan is, if everything on the truck is manageable, I'll be driving it home. It's only an hour away, but this truck's been sitting out on a farm. The guy selling it doesn't have much experience behind the wheel, but as precaution, I did bring some extra oil. I brought some tools. I brought jerry can, some extra coolant right here. So anyways, I don't know how much I'll film when I'm there, but I'm gonna keep hitting the road. Possibly I'll see you guys when I'm in the truck. Here we are. As you can see, I bought the 1988 Toyota pickup. The buying experience was quite the adventure, but stick around because we'll be going over all of that. I just stopped at this gas station to check the oil. I was super happy with the purchase of this truck, but that's not to say that it was perfect. I played it safe and checked on the oil and coolant levels throughout the drive home. This pickup's smoking a little bit, but the oil that was in it was also so old and so black. So I'm hoping once it has fresher oil in it, it won't be burning as much oil. So I just drove the Nissan pickup back home and then got driven back to pick up my RAV4, which I'm driving home now. But this will be a good chance to tell you guys a little bit about how the experience of buying the Nissan pickup went. First things first, the guy selling the truck was super nice. He didn't know much about the truck personally though, because he had inherited it recently. When I first went to take the truck for a test drive, it started up, but it was running rough and it didn't have enough power for me to actually move out of its parking spot. But I realized that it was running out of gas. So we filled it up with some fuel that was also on this property, and I was able to take the truck for a drive. First impressions, it does need a new muffler. The exhaust is pretty gnarly. But I took it for a drive down the gravel roads, got up to speed. I tested the transfer case out and the locking hubs out, and thankfully that all worked great. Also, first impressions, the body's really solid. I took a decent look at the frame, and the frame looks pretty solid. Also, the interior is filthy. The truck primarily must have been used to boot around this small acreage-like property and run errands. But thankfully, the truck had seat covers on it, and underneath the seat covers that were torn, the seats were in perfect condition still. So that is great. But the oil was so thin and dark, and when I removed the oil fill cap, it was smoking a bit, the exhaust was smoking a bit, and it seemed to have been burning a bunch of oil when I was out on the test drive. So that's pretty worrying about engine issues, worn piston rings, stuff like that. But I topped the oil up. Unfortunately, all I had was 5W30. That engine calls for 10W30, and I should actually be putting in a thicker oil. So it was still burning oil, and I wanted to go and get some fresh fuel and some fresh oil. But the town that this truck was located in didn't even have a gas station. So I had to drive only 20 minutes each way to buy 15W40 oil, fresh fuel in my jerry cans. Thankfully, I brought 2 jerry cans. So I got back, put the fuel from the jerry cans into the truck. Unfortunately, at that point, the engine was full of oil, so I wasn't able to add any more of the proper oil. But I decided to take the trek back home. Handling on the highway was actually surprisingly good. As I said, the exhaust was pretty gnarly, so I'll have to get that fixed soon. So now we'll hopefully go give it a fresh clean and a fresh oil change. So first things first, I will not be washing it because the muffler is broken in a way that it is practically straight piped and it sounds obnoxious and I can't stand driving it anymore. So I bought a universal muffler when I went and bought the filter for the oil change, and hopefully I'll be able to get it welded on at the same time. All right, this is the muffler I got. The comments were saying that it is a lot quieter. These might fit, filter and oil, but there's a much more serious problem because there's some coolant. This is all bubbling, it's hot, Now, as I'm thinking about it, I did refill the radiator and the coolant reservoir, which were both low. Well, this is the first time I've checked on it and it is bubbling and overheating, which hopefully has not caused any engine damage. I'm wondering if it could just be an airlock in the cooling system from having to refill it when it was low, when I initially looked at the truck. We will be getting back to that and bleeding the cooling system, but for now, you can probably tell why it sounded like this was straight pipes. And the end of the exhaust is just kind of chained up right here. That is definitely some dark oil. Wow. But what is going on up here? They even had wire holding this muffler together. Old muffler is off. Now for this muffler end to fit on the stock pipe, I'm just gonna have to weld on this adapter right here real quick. All right, everybody, this is my latest creation for the exhaust. So we got the new muffler right there. That's where it'll attach to the old. And then this is mainly just the end pipe to hang it up for now so that it is secure. Over here, the oil change is pretty much done. Just need to fill the oil back up, and then I'll be taking a look at the cooling system. Might just have to drain and refill it, making sure that there's no airlocks in the system. Keep in mind, it's almost 11 o'clock, so it's getting late, and I've been out all day. I'm tired. Here it is, new exhaust welded in. It's just secured similar way by the chains back there now. So my plan, what I'm gonna do is get the truck backed up on a little bit of an incline on this ramp here. Then I will run it and squeeze the rad hoses in hopes to bubble out any air bubbles that might be in the system or in the radiator. And then I'll make sure the levels are still good and then see how it does. The gauge cluster is not working in there, so I can't actually see the temperature gauge fluctuating, which is really bad in this situation. Though starting this truck also means that we're about to hear what the new exhaust sounds like, so I'm really curious. Well, I'm really happy because you may or may not be able to notice that the exhaust now is a lot quieter. It is 99% better now, so that is a big win. It is actually burping some air, which is what we wanted. I think I'm gonna try and remove some of this gross coolant because that's really not ideal. And then I'll add some fresh coolant that I have. All right, so what I've got going on now is I opened the drain valve on the bottom of the radiator. So now I have it draining out rusty, I don't know, coolant. I'm flushing it out with water, and then I'll be topping it back up with coolant, burping out all the air bubbles, and then we should be safe from there, and hopefully that will mean no more overheating. If you can't tell, our water's finally starting to run clear, which is a great improvement, but keep in mind this was definitely not a traditional cooling system flush at all. So this is definitely not a tutorial on how to do whatever I'm doing. So I spent quite a while airing out the coolant system, and I've driven it a couple times since, and it does not seem to be overheating at all. But like I said, because the gauge cluster is not working properly, I'm unable to read most of the sensors like the engine temp. But that's something I'm gonna be working on, hopefully fixing. That will be in the future. Right now, I'm taking a look on the interior and getting it cleaned up because the interior on this truck is filthy. So I definitely want to have it cleaned up so that I have a much nicer workspace when I am troubleshooting the gauge cluster, stuff like that. The top of this dash here is actually blue, but yeah. So next little while, I'm just going to be spending pulling all of this crap out. Also finding quite a few cassette tapes. I actually listened to one right here on the way home. But I'm probably going to put some gloves on and just get rid of all this trash. big difference. It wasn't a super deep detail, but it was a great initial vacuum. Get rid of all the garbage, nice wipe down. Feels a whole lot better. So yeah, that's the introduction of the Nissan pickup. We've now got our hands on. Hopefully we'll treat it well and it'll treat us well, and it'll be an awesome journey. So thanks for watching this video. Stay tuned for more of this vehicle and others, of course. Drop a comment down below. Until next time.